Hashtag Michigan State University. Hashtag research, hashtag Michigan, hashtag history, hashtag Michigan. Did you know? Exploding head. MSU Libraries, Maps and Geospatial Services. John Farmer, Mapmaker, 1798 to 1859. John Farmer lived in a time when wide-open possibilities were available in a newly settled land, and an energetic, effective person could be the first in many areas. Biography of John Farmer, a Farmer, Maps and Geospatial Services, MSU Libraries. Born in Saratoga County, upstate New York, he first became a school teacher and taught map drafting among other topics. Michigan Territory was eagerly seeking school teachers. The University of Michigan operated no higher education but was running a primary and secondary school. In December 1821, the Board of University of Michigan in Detroit offered him a position as head of the Lancasterian School. Farmer found additional work hand-copying township maps from the freshly made surveyors' manuscripts, and sold them to the settlers who were entering the state. He also drew for the Treasurer of the United States a map of Michigan's first real road, which had been funded by the federal government. He then assisted Orange Risdon in drafting a map of the surveyed part of Michigan. When Risdon's project stalled, Farmer ended up publishing his own detailed map of the state in 1826. In the 1830s, instead of revising his existing map, he planned and executed a new map containing much detail. It had so much detail, in fact, that outsourcing the engraving of the map to copper printing plates would have been prohibitively expensive. His son later wrote in A History of the City of Detroit, he procured a set of engraver's tools and undertook the work. This map of the surveyed part of the state of Michigan depicts in great detail the southern half of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. At that time, Michigan Territory extended far to the west, and map insets showed the Mackinac area, a settlement at what is now Cassville, Wisconsin, and the settlement at what is now Green Bay, Wisconsin. He also produced regional maps starting in 1835, when both Michigan and Wisconsin were still mere territories, but continuously revising them over the years to reflect changes in development. In 1835, his Michigan and Wisconsin map was titled, Improved Map of the Territories of Michigan and Wisconsin, pronounced Wisconsin, on a scale of 30 geographical miles to an inch. At the time of his death nearly 25 years later, he was still producing a Michigan and Wisconsin map, now titled Map of the States of Michigan and Wisconsin, embracing a great part of Iowa and Illinois and the whole mineral region, with a chart of the lakes, exhibiting the sections, the geological formations, and the general topography. After a few years, Farmer sold the publishing rights to his maps to Eastern publisher J. H. Colton and turned his attention to mapping new communities and became involved in the formation of a Detroit Board of School Inspectors. But Farmer saw there still was need for continuously updated maps of the whole state, which was being settled quickly and was continuously seeing formation of new towns, townships, and counties. In 1844 he launched his master work, The State of Michigan and the Surrounding Country. This map contained extreme detail of every surveyed square mile, every stream, swamp, and every road and trail. Michigan residents found it absolutely essential, so much that supply could not keep up with demand. A hot secondary market formed, and used copies of Farmer maps sold for much higher than their list price. Farmer's method for physical detail was to transfer details from the original surveyor's plat maps available in the U.S. Land Office in Detroit. By the end of the 1850s, all of the state had been surveyed into over 2,600 townships and divided into over 61,000 mile sections. Each township was mapped separately on large sheets at large scale, noting lakes, swamps, tree and land cover types, and other major features. Farmer reduced all this detail to a single sheet map of the state. Farmer devoted much time and effort to maintaining the currency of his maps. He closely watched political developments in the state and quickly incorporated the formation of new counties, townships, and settlements into his nearly annual revisions. He continued, however, to produce other varied works, including an enormous, over 5 feet by 6 feet, or 1.6 meters by 1.8 meters, multi-sheet map of Michigan and Wisconsin and surrounding areas. It is said that John Farmer worked himself to death. He worked ceaselessly on projects, issuing his enormously detailed maps as frequently as possible. No other state in the Northwest Territory, or possibly in the entire United States, has such detailed cartographic records from this time period. Decades later, the Michigan Geological Survey issued a map of Michigan's swamps simply by copying over the detail from Farmer's masterwork. Farmer died March 24, 1859 in Detroit, Michigan. His widow Rachel Farmer and sons Silas, Arthur and John carried on the business for some time afterward. Maps published after John Farmer's death, however, never maintained the detail and currency of his former work. John Farmer timeline. March 21, 1821, writes up Articles of Incorporation for Michigan Territory's First Methodist Episcopal Church. 1822 to 1823, copies surveyor's plats and sells them by the sheet. 1824, works with Orange Risdon on his map. 1825, map of the National Road. 1825, map of the surveyed part of the Territory of Michigan, September. 1826, map of the surveyed part of the Territory of Michigan, December. 1829, an improved map of the surveyed part of the Territory of Michigan. 1830, map of the territories of Michigan and Wisconsin. 1830, Emigrant's Guide, or Pocket Gazetteer of the surveyed part of Michigan, 32 pp. 1830, first issued the Emigrant's Guide, or Pocket Gazetteer of the surveyed part of Michigan. 1830, named Surveyor for, City of Detroit or the State of Michigan. 1831, drafted a map of Detroit to accompany the governor and judge's plan to Congress.